What if I told you that the difference between charging $15 an hour and $800 an hour for your consulting services isn't about getting more experience or fancier credentials? It's about learning to confidently state facts about what you've already accomplished. My guest today went from severe underpricing to premium rates by making one critical shift, replacing false humility with factual confidence. He learned that when a client asks if you can help with a merger and acquisition, and you've successfully done it 6 times before with documented results, saying, I think I might be able to help, isn't humility. It's false humility, and it's costing you clients. My name is AJ Riedel. This is Thriving Through, the podcast where each week I have real conversations with seasoned, successful self employed consultants about what it really takes to build a profitable, sustainable, and fulfilling consulting practice. Today, I'm talking with Brandon Mahoney, Director of Partnerships at LaunchPoint Labs and an independent consultant at his own company, Mahoney Consulting. Brandon specializes in helping mission-driven organizations find predictable, repeatable, and profitable sales systems. And he's going to share the exact pricing strategy that took him from severely undercharging to commanding premium rates. He's also going to share about the free audit strategy that converts 2 out of 3 prospects into paying clients. And he'll share why consulting is significantly harder work than employment, but infinitely more rewarding. If you've ever struggled with pricing your services, wondered how to market consulting offerings that are inherently customized, or needed to hear that standing firm on your expertise is exactly what your clients need from you, this conversation is going to transform how you think about your consulting practice. Let's dive in. Welcome to this episode of the Thriving Through podcast. Today, my guest is Brandon Mahoney. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I have a question that I ask all of my podcast guests to start us off. What was your path to becoming a self-employed consultant?
Ooh. So it was probably similar to a lot of individuals. I was in a position where I love the work that I do. I love working with organizations and building sales and teams. And I realized that I had the capacity to do more than just work for one company at a time. And then the biggest change came during the pandemic, where I became concerned that the organizations I was working with were going to have layoffs. And then where was my income going to come from? So there was this combination of I want to be challenged because I know I can do more, but I'm also a little afraid of what's happening because of the pandemic. And so I made the decision, well, let me open myself up to work with multiple organizations at the same time. And that was back in very early 2020, and here I am today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, thinking back to those first couple years, tell us a story or two about the biggest challenges you faced in building your practice and how
Mhm.
you overcame them.
So that's a great question. I'd like to think of myself as being quite humble. I am through and through, I'm a salesperson, but I've always hated the way salespeople carry themselves in the sense of like, oh, I'm smarter than everyone. I'm the best in the room. I know everything. I like to be humble, and what I noticed is that that humbleness as I approached different clients, it kind of bit me in the butt in the sense that they would come to me and they'd say, "Hey, I have this challenge, I have this issue," and I try to be humble and saying, "Yes, I might be able to help with that. Like I've done this before. I feel like I could do this." But they're looking for that confidence. And so the biggest hurdle I had in the beginning was I have to be quick in saying, yes, I can do this. And here are my proof points. And not being afraid of saying, it was almost like imposter syndrome, and not being afraid to say, yes, you want me, you're dealing with a merger and acquisition. Yes, I have taken 2 separate organizations with 2 different sales methodologies, and I have joined them together before. And here's the results of how I've done that. And instead of coming in with that confidence, I almost feel like if I speak that way, it makes me kind of look like I'm the brutish, annoying salesperson. But what I failed to realize at that time was these leaders are looking for somebody who has the confidence to do this, not just because they want to know that you can do it, but what they want to be able to do is they want to be able to say, I can trust this person to take care of this task so that I can free up the mental load so I can focus on these other things that I know I'm good at. In the beginning, I had a hard time grasping that.
That's a great lesson that, that's false humility because you're coming in saying, I think I might be able to help you when in fact you know you can help them.
Yes.
And they need to know that you can help them.
There's
That's
there's nothing wrong with saying yes, like when an organization says, "Hey, I'm building a business development process. Can you help me?" It's like, oh, I don't know if I can. Meanwhile, I've done it with 6 different organizations successfully. It's documented success. Why would I not just say, yeah, absolutely, I can do this? You need proof. You can talk to this founder, this founder, this founder. I've done it before multiple times. So I let go of that because you can also talk about the things you've done and how you've been successful without sounding like a jerk, without sounding
right.
like you're better than everyone. But just you could just use the facts, use the numbers. And so I've learned to approach things that way. Um, and it's gone a long way, not just in my consulting, but also in the way I work with teams and how they can talk about their product and how they can talk about their processes and their systems when they're selling. That same confidence, have confidence in what your product can do. So yeah,
Yeah. It's not arrogance, it's stating the facts.
absolutely. Yes, it's being factual. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. I want to talk about you are going through a pivot.
Oh yes.
So tell me about the pivot, how it came about, what you're moving toward. Tell us
So this
that about
so
all of
this is
that.
this, so this is a long one. So I hope we have time for all of it. So I when I around the time that I made the decision that I was going to start consulting, for the myriad of reasons that I mentioned earlier, I had 2 really close friends and colleagues that also started consulting, focusing on different areas of expertise that I had met at a startup on the East Coast. And it ended up being a situation where I'd be consulting with an organization, and I knew that one of the goals is, well, I want to direct people to our website. I don't make websites, but I know what a bad website looks like. I can't fix it. I just know it's a bad website. And I had a friend that I worked with again who was consulting and working with websites. And so I would take this organization and I would say, hey, I think you need to refresh your website. It's not guiding people to where they need to go. It's not providing the information as easily as it could be. I know someone who can help you out with this. And it was a one-off thing. Well, that one-off situation ended up happening over and over and over again within 2 years time frame of my just beginning my consulting. And what ended up happening was it wasn't just myself sharing a client with this individual. They were also then sharing it with me with their clients, and then we had another individual that we worked with that we were sharing. So there was 3 of us that were taking on clients and eventually sharing between us each other. And we ended up coming to the realization at one point, we each of us shared the same 5 clients. So the 3 of us together had the same 5 clients with completely different fees, contracts. Everything was complete. They're paying 3 different people, but yet we were so close. And this was the formation of what is now Launch Point Labs, my organization. And that was the first pivot for me was I am no longer going to consult on my own. I am now going to consult through an organization that I happen to be starting. And the idea was beautiful. I love the idea behind it. It was all about we want to help good people build great businesses. We focus on mission driven nonprofits, for profits. If you are going to make the world a better place, we want to work with you. We want to help you figure out how to get things set up, whether it's operationally, financially, marketing, you go to market strategy, sales, revenue generation, whatever it is. The 3 of us together, we can make this happen. And that was my first pivot where I said, I have great relationships with a lot of organizations where they don't own my information, but they have my information on their site. So if someone goes to them and wants to work with somebody who happens to do what I do, business development, revenue generation, they still have my profile. They can still reach out to me. But I was excited that I was going to be able to work with an entrepreneur or a small business and provide them essentially everything that they needed to become successful, to grow, build their customer base, build their vision, build their mission. And that was the first pivot, was doing this. The next pivot came when we thought that and by we, I mean the other founders at Launchpoint, thought I was going to be overwhelmed with work. We thought every organization was going to need revenue generation, they're going to need sales. Complete opposite ended up being the case. Everyone needed websites developed, they needed logos, they needed creative work, they needed operational support, they needed financial support, and just even how to go to talk to an investor. And so while I was locking down new partnerships, no one out of two, it was probably 2 3 years, I had 5 organizations probably in total that were like, I need revenue generation. I need someone to help me build a sales team. I need someone who can help me build sales playbooks and do these things. And I love what we do. What we do is to me is a beautiful thing. But if my expertise is not being used, I started getting to the point where I was like, okay, I'm not feeling as fulfilled. For me, it's not a success for me personally. Love what I've developed, love what I've created. So I started taking on more clients through my old consulting agency. So I started working with contracts outside of Launchpoint Labs. And the last one I did, I ended up working with an organization where I ended up working with an individual who is the successor to Jack Daly. He is one of the most sought after consultants in the US. And I learned so much from him. And it was just a year-long contract. And I know I'm saying a lot here, but it's the how things have changed and grew. At the end of that contract, I realized that I was so happy doing what I was doing because I was getting to do the things that I love to do, which is working with sales teams. It is doing that coaching. It is doing that. I'm going to sit down and help you figure out what is the best possible way to sell your service, sell your product in a way where it's predictable, it's repeatable, and it's profitable, right? Because those are the three main things that to me is important for any organization. And so when my contract ended with this organization, I then left Launchpoint Labs. And this happened in May of this year. I decided
Hmm.
I spoke with the founders, two good friends of mine, and I said essentially, I love what we're doing. I still want to help where I can, but I will just be here as a consultant. I will no longer be an actual leader within the company because I don't. It's not going in the direction that I needed it to for me to feel fulfilled. So I stepped away. And then maybe 2 3 months later, in August, they reached back out very, very nicely, very kindly, like, hey, I know you left. Will you come back and help us? Uh, we want to lock down more partnerships and we want to grow. But at the same time, we recognize that, like, for what you do, we don't get to. So we're going to break into new markets and we're going to work with more companies. We're going to start focusing on organizations that need that kind of sales support that you offer. And when that happened, I was living in Oregon. I was in Portland, Oregon, living my best life, or as good of a life as you can. And I made the decision, well, if we're going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And since we started the organization, I've been 3,000 miles away. And about 2 weeks ago, I officially moved to Delaware, where I am right now. And so the pivot was coming back, but coming back in a way where we are now focusing on organizations that still similarly they're mission driven. They are
Hmm.
here to make the world a better place, and that's what I want to help. But they're organizations that they need what I do. They need sales expertise. They need go to market strategy. And so the pivots were three. They're pivoting to consulting in general, starting the organization Launchpoint Labs, and then leaving it, and then pivoting to come back in a way where it's going to work for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Long
So,
answer. So
so are you going to let when you were with LaunchPoint before and now you're with LaunchPoint again, does that mean all your work goes through LaunchPoint and not through your own consulting company?
no, I will always have my own consulting company. For no other reason than when I am with LaunchPoint, it's important to me that I reflect my team, my company, in not just my values and my what how I view things, but how they do as well. When I'm working with them, there's always a part of me that's going to say, okay, what else can LaunchPoint do that this organization is going to benefit from? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but at the same time, when I am doing my own consulting and I work with an organization, they have a goal. And we'll work together to figure out what that goal really should be, what's realistic and what's the real impact we want to make here. And I need to be able to just be myself and focus on that solely as myself. It's similar to the air of confidence that you should have when you're a consultant. I can't have that same air of confidence when I am with LaunchPoint Labs because they're not that kind of organization, and I need to be respectful of the culture. So
Well,
there is a separation of the two.
I'm curious why you came back to Centerpoint Labs.
So I came back because I love what we do. And I told myself a long time ago when we began, I was like, this is the last thing I'll ever do. I will never work for anyone else. It'll just be this, which at the same time is me working for others. It is me working with a client and helping them achieve XYZ goal. I came back because this is to me the mission that we have, the organizations that we have worked with. They're a majority nonprofit or they are mission driven for profits where I work with them and I get to tell people like, hey, I'm working with an organization that is helping to make that works with the elderly. So if I could name drop, Age Tech Collaborative. I work with a lot of that community where they're helping to make the life of our parents and our grandparents better. I can be proud of that. I can do that work and I can feel like, okay, world is getting better. I'm a part of this. I'm helping. That's a great feeling. That's why I came back to LaunchPoint. It's
Okay.
a opportunity for me to give back. Yeah.
So you don't for your own consulting business, you work with an entirely different set, not necessarily mission driven.
So it is a lot of software, it's tech, it's SaaS, it's AI driven organizations. It might be financial if they're doing anything related to blockchain or crypto, where they're doing some amazing work. It's exciting, fun work. But realistically, I can't look back and say, oh, they're making the world a better place. They might be making people's lives a little easier, but making the world a better place would be a stretch, right? And that's what
Hmm.
I'm working on as an individual. Yeah.
Okay. When we talked earlier, you mentioned that you started out charging 15 to $20 an hour and you got some advice from your brother.
Yes.
Tell us what your brother told us and how you learned to value and price your expertise.
So I had no idea what I was doing at all. This kind of goes back to the having the confidence. So the first place I ever set up my profile and had a contract with, they said, you know, pick your hourly rate. And I was like, okay, that's $15 an hour, $20 an hour. Like let's go with that. Let's test it out. My mindset was similar like building a resume. I had to build that as a consultant, fresh and new. Again, my ignorance in the beginning, not thinking that my prior experience really stood on its own like foundation. I had to do it on
Hmm.
my own. And so I went in with this mindset of like, okay, let me 15, $20 an hour, let's go. And I'm talking with my brother. I'm the youngest of six. I've got one of my older brothers is a he's worked with startups. He's a very intelligent guy, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, think of how much the last company that hired you paid you. They paid you that because they knew you could do it, and because you had proven that you could do it. Why would you not think, what's the hourly that I would have made, put it into that?" And I was like, oh, no one's gonna pay me that. It's just not gonna happen. And so I was like, whatever. I'm testing it out. I put it in at, and mind you, I had taken on a few clients at the $15, $20 range. And I kicked myself for that. And luckily it was calls. For example, they would say, "Hey, we're looking at two different softwares, the two different CRMs. Could you join the call so you can help us ask the right questions and really dig into what's right?" And I joined them, and yeah, I was like, "Oh wow, my first successful client. This is great." It was an hour-long call, made $15. Well,
Hmm.
I ended up changing it to say $250 an hour, and I'm thinking, what kind of an ego do I have to charge that? Like that to me is like it's almost insulting to think that I would get that. And sure enough, I had people reaching out and wanted to talk with me. And it was never a, hey, let's negotiate price. It was simply, yep, that's what you charge. Okay, cool. That's what you charge. We're gonna lock you in for 3 months. We want this many hours a month. Like this is what we're gonna work on. We went through the SOW and it was like, wow, they actually paid that.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, let me start building these clients up where it's not like let me keep them on as clients forever, which would have been nice in the beginning, but more so the success stories. And then, I mean, this is back in 2020, and then even now I get hit up, but my price has gone up, but not
Hmm.
significantly. But I'll have organizations that'll reach out to say, "Hey, $800 an hour," and it's like, sure. Like if you, depending on what you want me to do, if you're dealing with especially like a merger and acquisition where you've got two different organizations you're trying to put together, there's a lot of work that goes into that. Especially if I have to talk to different sales leaders and have them work together and figure out how do we make a playbook out of one organization that has a playbook and another one that doesn't. How do you put it together and create a coaching program out of that? Like that takes a lot of work. And so yeah, the $800 an hour, absolutely. Let's do that. But when I first started, that the idea of that, it made me feel queasy almost. Like why in the world would I ever think that that's okay? Well, it turns out that that's just fine. And if anything, I feel like when they see you not charging, it's like, okay, this person definitely does not have confidence. Don't know what they're doing. And so I feel like it's something that bit me in the butt very early on. You have to be able to price yourself appropriately. Yeah.
Yes, and that is your struggle there is such a classic one for consultants, and it's great that you learned that lesson early. But how do I charge what I'm worth? So many people negate their corporate what gave them the expertise that they're able to use as a consultant, and they say, "Well, I couldn't possibly charge what I was making in corporate because I'm not in corporate anymore." It's like, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you've got all that experience. Let me
Yeah.
ask you another question.
Yes.
Do you charge on like retainer basis and then price it per the hour, or how do you is it
Generally, I'm generally project based. Generally project based. There have been two organizations that wanted retainer. But the way that works out is typically they have a sales playbook built that they are happy with, and they just need someone to come in and coach their team. And so I'll come in and I'll do live role practice with the team once a week, and we'll do that for as long as they want me to do it until they start seeing the team starting to bring in results. But
Mhm.
for the most part, it's project based. It is, hey, we have a merger. I'm big on building playbooks. That's one of my favorite things to do. Let's create a playbook. So they'll bring me in to do that, or they're either moving from a CRM or a sales intelligence tool, like that kind of a platform. They are not sure what's the best one to move into, and they're not quite sure how to then train their team how to best utilize it. And so I'll come in for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now it's evolved. You're not charging by hour, you're charging by project.
Yes, yes.
Yes, at a premium rate.
As much as they're willing to pay and as much as I feel like I should make. Yeah.
Okay. You told a story about a founder who insisted on his outdated approach
Oh yeah.
despite
Yeah.
your expertise. Tell me that story.
So I don't want to name drop because I love their organization and they're a wonderful company. So this happened at the beginning of the pandemic. I was moving across the country and I was brought onto an organization to build out their business development strategy. They had teams in place already. There's about 20 members of this team between the US and international. Each team was split in two. They had their inbound team and their outbound team. The biggest concern that this individual had was, why is the outbound team still focusing on inbound? And I dug into it and I saw, well, you're paying both teams for inbound and outbound, but you're rewarding them the same amount. So there was no quota saying, hey, outbound team, you have to have X amount of outbound. Inbound team, you have to have X amount of inbound. It was simply at the end of the month, you're required for, let's say, 10 opportunities within inbound and outbound, and we're going to pay you X amount for both. Well, if I'm an outbound person and I know I'm going to get paid for inbound, and inbound is significantly easier, why would I waste my time doing outbound? And his initial thought was, well, we'll separate out the teams, which is what they did before I joined, which is why there was an inbound and outbound team. But he was still paying them exactly the same. And I'm looking at this like, well, this doesn't make any sense. First of all, my views have always been inbound and outbound teams are completely different teams. Inbound for me has always been how I train the teams. Let's get you into warm conversation so you can get used to talking about the product, the company, talking to customers. And as you get really good at that and you get used to that, well, then your promotion is now your outbound, where your ability to talk about the value of the product is now being tested and pressure tested, because you're not talking to individuals that are coming to you saying, hey, I know what you do. I want to work with you. You're now talking to organizations that may not know who we are, and you're trying to show them that value to get them interested.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other reasons for inbound versus outbound. Breaking into a new market, you might want to use an outbound. Well, you should be using an outbound team. But for this scenario, that's how I differentiate the two. And I sat down with them, and this is the CEO of the organization and founder and co-founder. And I was like, listen, you're never going to get them to focus on outbound if we pay them the same for bringing in inbound. We need to have a real separation of these two teams. We need to have the outbound team that is encouraged to do outbound, that is paid for outbound, not inbound. Remove inbound, pay them more for the outbound. That is how you get them to start focusing on that, because why would they otherwise? And I was getting, I ran a business development team for a few years, and this is how I did it, and it worked just fine then. It's going to work here. Mind you, he hadn't run business development for probably a decade. And so I'm sitting there thinking, like, what do I do? I need to, and here I get very early on in my move across the country, and I'm thinking, how do I get this individual to see what I'm saying? But more than that, I don't want to put my name on this, because it's not what I believe we should be doing. And I was brought on board to fix this very challenge. And so I made it very clear, I'm not putting my name on this. Like, I do not agree with this direction. Like, I don't want to coach to this. And thankfully, it was a situation where it was like, okay, I brought you on board. Let's see how you do it. Okay, well,
Mm.
I did it. And first 90 days of me doing it resulted in a 281% increase in outbound opportunities. Uh, Pipeline grew substantially, and then the next 3 months, we started hiring people to join the outbound team. I think we grew the outbound team by 162% because I made very simple changes. If you're going to focus on outbound, reward outbound. Simple as that. But it's something
Mm-hmm.
where it was like, I was so nervous because I just drove 3,000 miles across the country, and now the person who just hired me is saying, well, I think we should do this. And I'm like, oh, crap, I'm going to get fired here because I'm going to tell them, no, we shouldn't. And here's why. But I needed to have more of an ego, I think, in that case. And I learned very quickly, you have to be able to say, this is not the right direction. Here's why. Yeah.
Great lesson.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned that marketing your own consulting business is challenging because every engagement is custom built and there's no playbook you can sell. So how have you approached marketing services that are inherently customized?
So one thing that I started doing, and this has helped, and you're right, and just to take a step back from that, I a lot of organizations would say to me, hey, let me see a playbook. It's like, well, what playbook am I going to show you? Because the playbook I show you is custom built for an organization where, one, I don't know how comfortable I am sharing that with you, but also you're going to look at that and think like, this doesn't make sense because it's not built for you. And so one thing that I did that it made a huge difference in my even just approaching clients is I would go through LinkedIn, I'd go through Monster Jobs, I'd go through any job board I could find that was looking to hire somebody to run business development, sales development, even hiring CROs, and I would offer to do a audit for them completely free of charge, where I would say, listen, I will sit down with you and your team, and I will ask you a series of questions that cover 6 pillars of sales within your organization. And at the end of it, I'm going to give you a blueprint of what you are doing today, where you want to be tomorrow, and what the impact is that it's having on your organization by not being there. All agreed upon with you. I'm not making the numbers up. You're the one giving me the numbers. I'm just sharing the expertise and I'm sharing the insights that I have. And then at the end of that, I then provide you with that blueprint so that you can take it and you can make the changes yourself. Because what I want you to see is you can do it yourself. It's much easier and much more beneficial if you work with me to do it, but you can
Mhm.
do it yourself. But the biggest thing that this did for me was it allowed them to see, like, wow, there is a lot that we have to do. And you're right, it is completely different. The way we execute, the way we go to market, the way we interact between product, marketing, sales, it is very separate. It is not the way we thought it was. We don't have the same KPIs. Why are the KPIs so different between marketing and sales? They should be related to some degree. And when you go through that with them, they start to see, okay, there is a lot more behind what you're creating than a generic playbook that just goes, okay, if you do A, B, C, you're going to be successful. And that's not the case. Not the case at all. But I had to be able to open up that conversation to even get them to listen to me about that. And that was it took some time to figure out how to do that because there was a lot of conversations where, oh, let me see a sample playbook. Oh, I can't because it's different. Oh, yeah, sure, it's different. Okay, whatever. We move on to the next person who might provide a very generic playbook that they're going to use and they're never going to look at again. And that, to me, I can't do that. So
Yeah. So is that the strategy you use today?
100%. 100%. It is I want to provide value no matter what I do. Worst case scenario, if I provide you with a blueprint and I sit down with you and your team, and so there's usually 3 conversations that take place. One is the initial, what are you looking to do? Where are you today? It's the discovery. It's I'm asking as many questions as I can to really hear from them. Where are they at? Where are they trying to get to? And also probing what's the real challenge? What's really stopping you from being there? Then we do the audit. The audit, hour long. I'm digging into different, I'm asking pointed questions. I'm giving my feedback as to what I've seen work very successfully within different industries of how things should be set up. Then I take that, I do the breakdown, and I send it to you, and we get together for one final call. Or what questions do you have about what I've put together? What questions do you have about how you can execute on this? And even if it ends there, even if they say, you know what, this is great. And actually, I have a great story about me doing this and it actually having an outcome that I never expected. Um, they like if they come back and say, you know what, we're going to try to tackle this on our own. That's great. I'm sure you work with other organizations that could probably use something like this. Can you introduce me to somebody? Who can you
Hmm.
introduce me to? It's a referral thing, but I don't like the word referral. To me, it's a I don't want a referral. I want an introduction. I want you to have liked working with me so much that you are willing to go, okay, hey, I'm gonna call my friend up and I'm gonna call you into the call as well. That's what I look for. So even if it ends where we don't work together, I want to have shown up in a way where you're like, you know what you're doing. You provided me with such great insights. I know someone else who could get value from this, and they'll move me there. Yeah.
Okay. I like your 3-part. That I think that's very applicable for consultants as well. That first discovery call is just figuring out their current in gap selling, it's called current state.
Yes. Yes. It also informs me when I'm doing the audit. It's like there are 6 pillars to the audit that I run through, and to me, a 6 pillar audit. I think is pretty commonplace for what I do, but it allows me to say, okay, I know areas that I really need to hound in on, and I really need to focus on, and oftentimes it's leadership. It's leadership or it's sales management. Those are usually the two areas where it's like, okay, let me really focus on this. Where the other areas, it's just they're kind of common sense when you talk about them. When you talk about like the integration between product marketing and sales and how they interact with one another, most organizations they fail horribly at this. So that's a pretty easy conversation to highlight. But it's the leadership side where they don't expect you to say to them, you're actually dropping the ball here because you're not doing X, Y, and Z, or you're not allowing this person to execute on X, Y, and Z. You're holding them back by being a founder that's a helicopter founder that's not willing to let go and trust. And so that's what the discovery call, that beginning call, that's what that informs me on is how do I have the conversation about the audit so that it's powerful and it's impactful and it makes them I want them to walk away like, damn, I never thought of that. So
What percent of the, the calls convert into an actual client when you use this methodology?
ooh, more than half. I would say definitely more than half. It's what it usually starts out as is it becomes a small engagement, and that's all I want in the beginning. Not, it's not all I want, but that's a win to me because that small
Mhm.
engagement begins to grow and grow and grow. And the small engagement could be something as simple as my team doesn't know how to handle objections. Can you help me with that? Okay, well, they don't know how to handle objections because you're not doing role practice. Okay, well, let me sit down with your management team, your sales managers, and teach them how to do an effective role practice every single week. It could be something as simple as that. And then that grows to, have you been building your playbook? No, well, I can help you build a playbook. This is how I do playbooks. And then it grows to building a playbook, and then it could expand from there. But for the most part, something comes out of it. If they engage with me in a conversation and we get through the discovery call, we get to the actual audit, usually something. I would say two out of three, I am getting some kind of engagement, and it's not always huge, but it eventually grows. I do my best to keep track of clients. Um, I, it's so much easier once they know who you are. And if the engagement is over, I am big on saying, you know, do you believe I did a good job? Well, I have the numbers, so I can back up knowing I did a good job. But do you feel as though I did a good job? Awesome. Well, I'm sure you know somebody else within your or like within your industry that could probably use this. Like,
Mhm.
could you introduce me? What would stop you from introducing me to them? Because I don't like having to go through LinkedIn. I don't like having to go through these job boards, and because they're looking to hire somebody, right? They want somebody full time, and so convincing them to have the first conversation, that's the real challenge. So I'd rather work with like once I have somebody, I'd rather use them as a jumping off point to go elsewhere.
Or- I want to pivot a little and ask about the future.
Ooh, yeah.
First, first question is your consulting practice right now, is it delivering the lifestyle you dreamed of?
Dreamed of. Ooh, no, it is not.
Okay.
It is not. I don't know. I don't know if it ever will.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you why, because there are so many different things that I believe I need in life to feel fulfilled. And I am capturing it more and more every day. But my true passion is would be to create a bunch of mini me's. It would be to take others that are passionate about taking the world of sales, go to market strategy, revenue generation, and train them on how to do it in a way where you can feel good about yourself at the end of the day. And what I'm doing right now, it's not a pathway to that. At least I haven't figured out how to turn it into that kind of a pathway. So I'm taking on clients that I love working with. I love the challenge. It's fun. It's exciting. So I'm getting there. But that next step, that dream would be I have somebody come to me like, oh, I am also doing this. I am doing it in this kind of a way. I have this kind of a style. It's like, awesome. I've now helped you become successful in finding your love of consulting and the freedom that it provides you, and not just financial freedom, but you make your own hours. You do your own thing. You are your own boss. No one can ever tell you what to do anymore. You're good. I want to get to that point, and I'm not there yet. And I won't be for a little while because I'm still in the journey of figuring all of this out.
Hmm.
It just but for me, it's a hell of a lot of fun and I'm enjoying it because it has given me the freedom to move across the country twice now. Uh, If I want to close my laptop and say, you know what, today I don't feel like doing any work. Guess what? I close my laptop and I don't do any work. I never do that, but I could if I wanted to, and that feels good.
Right.
But
Okay.
I recognize that there's more that I want out of life, and this is the path to it. But it's not there yet. But it'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I have three questions that I ask my rapid fire wrap up questions right as we
Ooh.
end the podcast. What is one book, podcast, or resource that has been invaluable to your consulting practice?
Ooh. Oh, I'm gonna kick myself because I try to remember the name of the author, but it's Great Leaders Ask Great Questions. And the big portion of the book is just talking about how you listen. Do you listen to respond? Do you listen so that you could say something back? So like you can like you that you could say something relevant back, or are you actually listening to what they're saying? You're taking in how they're saying it, and you're really absorbing. I love this book. To me, it is such a powerful book because you have to be able to ask great questions, but there has to be the reason behind the question. So it's one of my absolute favorite books. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great leaders ask great questions.
Yes.
Okay. Second question. What's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you when you were started consulting?
Ooh, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's it is not a get rich quick scheme. It is not a you have to it's more work than it is. It's significantly more work than if you were going to just take on a job and be employed by someone. You have to show up every single day. It is a true reflection of you. You have to show up every single day putting in the work. This is not a vacation. It is, and I know this might sound like obviously, but when I first set out to do this, I thought, you know what, my background, it should speak for itself. I'm going to start low and I'm going to go very slowly. And nope, I treat it like a full-time job. I'm constantly looking through who might need my help. Where can I do extra work? If I'm working with a client, how can I show up even better for that client? I have to constantly ask and reiterate, or not reiterate, but constantly look at the process I'm going through of, okay, this client engagement is going to end in a month. What else can I do for them? How can I make myself valuable to them? And it's not just okay, we shake hands, it's over. It is so much. You have to be just constantly on it, which is wicked fun for me. I love, but there are definitely times where it's like, I'm not a millionaire yet. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is much harder than it seems. Because the
It,
barrier, I mean, it's easy to get set up as a self-employed consultant, relatively
yes.
easy.
Mhm.
Succeeding as a self-employed consultant is an entirely different matter.
Being able to say I'm a consultant because you took on a client for an hour 1 month versus I don't work for anyone else. This is all I do. Completely different things. And
Yes.
I have friends and family that mistake that for, oh, well, you can work whenever you want, right? Well, yeah, but I also have three clients that I need to get work done for. And it's a lot of work. Like, it's a lot of information I have to go through. I'm listening to recorded calls all the time from sales reps. It's like every week, it's like, send me your recorded calls so I can listen to them and I can analyze them. Well, that's time consuming. That's very
Hmm.
time consuming, but it's what you signed up for. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Last and most important question. How can listeners connect with you if they want to learn more about you and your work?
Ooh. So, uh, my my LinkedIn is I believe it's Doctor Sales right now, and there's a story behind it. It was Doctor Startup. I coined Doctor Startup a long time ago. I ran as that for the longest time, and then I started working with larger and larger organizations. The largest client I ever had was a $2 billion client, and they looked at not this organization, but I was looked at, and they were like, "Why is it Doctor Startup? You know, we're not a startup anymore. We're considered like a second stage organization." And so I changed it to Doctor Startup. But my LinkedIn, if you do Brandon Mahoney, it'll have Doctor Sales with it. That is my LinkedIn. It's probably the best place. I use that more than any other, if you can call it social media. But that's my
Hmm.
that's my page.
Okay. And I will make sure to put that link in the show notes
Oh,
so
thank you,
people
thank
can
you.
find you. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. And there are so many great nuggets about sales that consultants will be able to take away from this. I really appreciate your perspective. So
Yeah,
thank you so much.
thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.
What a powerful conversation with Brandon. If you take away one thing from today's episode, let it be this: confidence in your consulting practice and expertise isn't arrogance. It's stating facts about what you've accomplished and trusting that your clients need you to have that confidence so they can free up their mental load and focus on what they do best. Brandon's journey from $15 an hour to $800 an hour wasn't about becoming more qualified. He was already qualified. It was about learning to communicate that value with confidence. And his free audit methodology, that's a brilliant solution to one of consulting's biggest challenges. How do you market services that are inherently customized? You demonstrate your expertise by giving prospects a taste of the transformation you can create for them. Here's the reality that Brandon shared: consulting is significantly more work than traditional employment. You have to show up every single day. It's not a get rich quick scheme. But if you're willing to put in that work, if you're willing to constantly look for ways to add value and build your pipeline, and if you're willing to charge what you're actually worth, you can build a consulting practice that gives you freedom, fulfillment, and financial success. So this week, I challenge you to look at your pricing. Are you stating facts about your proven expertise, or are you letting false humility cost you clients and income? Because your ideal clients are looking for someone who has the confidence to take care of the challenge so they can focus on everything else. Until next time, keep thriving through.